Good day, everybody, and sincere apologies for the delayed start. As you all know, working on a farm and doing this great work that we all strive to do is not easy. I'm Jason Dodier, co-founder of the Grain Ecosystem, and I'm really excited to introduce Mike Mitchell, who helps lead Okaw Valley Orchard. This is a fourth-generation family-run orchard in Sullivan, Illinois, with over 1,500 fruit trees producing 27 varieties of apples, peaches, plums, and pears. And they've also become a cherished community destination where families come not only for fresh cider, apple cider donuts, and you pick apples, but it's a timeless experience. And what makes Mike especially inspiring is how he's carrying tradition into the future. He's been pioneering regenerative practices by blending biochar, compost, and worm castings into his orchard soils. And through his brand, Mike's Mighty Micros, he's showing how soil, health innovation can boost productivity, resilience, and even climate impact. Mike Mitchell, welcome to the program. And please kick us off with a little bit more background on you, the orchard, and biochar.
Well, thanks for having me. I started this venture 6-7 years ago. My father-in-law started the orchard in 1980, and he ran it all the way up until 6-7 years ago. And then me and his daughter, my wife, took it over. And I seen that I needed to start taking out some older trees that weren't producing and putting in new trees. So I took out a big couple acres of trees and put in all new fruit trees and planted them the way we typically do. And through the middle of the summer, after I planted them, they didn't do that good and didn't grow like I expected. And so I started reaching out to other orchards and even universities to kind of figure out what was going on. And nobody really could give me any answers, but I just kept looking and trying things. But finally, in August of that year, there was a customer at my orchard standing there eating a donut, and he was an old farmer, and he asked me, I asked him if he knew anybody that knew anything about growing trees or anything. I needed some help. And he's like, well, my buddy's an agronomist. He might help you and he might not. Let me call him. So he called him right there on the spot. And the guy that he called was named Brian. And little did I know at the time, he was a savant, super genius plant agronomist that had a lot of patents under his name and a regenerative agronomist that studied under Albrecht's works. And actually, he had all of William Albrecht's studies and research. So he knew all about trace minerals and micronutrients and all that. So he gave me some of his micronutrient blend to start putting on them in late August of that year. And they were droopy and yellowish leaves. And I mean, just no response at all from the growing season. And once I started using his micros, they'd like burst to life and come to life, put on new growth and turn green and started blooming and doing all the things. And it wasn't just a couple of them, it was all the trees that I planted. All 200 trees all did the same thing. So I'm like, what is this stuff? And he goes, well, it's something that it took me a long time to come up with it. And I make it and it's mine. He's like, just use it. So I started using it and I'm like, I need you to help me. I need somebody like you. What are you going to take to get you to mentor me and to advise me? And he goes, oh, I'll be there. I'll come over. So he came over one day and he like fried my brain on how everything works and how regular conventional farming is different than using a living soil and the microbes and biochar and trace minerals and all the things. And he started helping me, became a really good friend and then a mentor. And then that's when he wanted me to go into business with him and start marketing and doing Mike's Mighty Micros, even though I'm not the inventor of it. He's co-owner of the business. and he supplies me with the product.
And you know, Mike, obviously one of the commitments, certainly, you know, we've made it great and we're seeing in the industry is this importance around biochar as an offtake solution. So we
Yep.
hear a lot about recipes. What do end users like yourself want? What are you looking for? What's an ideal, compound and science-based structure? Can you talk a little bit about the early years and when you really started to see the resilience of biochar, whether that was drought resistance, natural pesticide. We talked a little bit at the farm about the deer coming in. So talk about some of the unexpected things that happened, and then over time, different elements that happened, and maybe even give us some timestamps about when those things started to occur and happen related to the orchard.
So when I first started working with Brian, one of the questions he asked me, he's like, "What have you done to improve your soil?" I'm like, "I put down fertilizer." He's like, "No, what have you done to improve your soil, make your soils better?" He goes, "Just imagine you had an acre of pasture and you put in 20 cows and you never put any more food in there and they ate the grass down to nothing where it's just bare dirt. And the cows died because they starved to death. Now you go buy 20 calves because you're going to start over and put them back into that same field. Nothing there. It's all trampled down, no grass, and you expect them calves to live." He goes, "That's exactly what your trees did. You had 40 years of trees there, sucking up all the minerals and nutrients, and now you took them out and you put new trees there, and they're starving." So he said that the three ingredients that he recommends is biochar, worm castings, and compost. So after that year, every tree I planted gets that under it, in some way or shape or form. And when we started researching biochars, not all biochar is created equal. Some are made with just wood with hardly any nutrients in it at all, and some are made with manures, which are high in nutrients and minerals. And he's like, "You want the ones made for the manure. Only use ones that are made with the manure." So now I got a little system now that when I plant my high density trees, I do a 4-foot swath, and then I put in the biochar, worm castings, and compost, and till it all in and get it ready for tree planting. And then that gives the trees a nice little root system area to grow into, and to be a nice area for them to grow. And then that using the biochar keeps the ground less compacted, more aerated, more ideal for worms to be in. So they're in there doing their thing, digging tunnels, pooping in them, and then fertilizing for you for free. And then he's like, once you've had a fruit or vegetable or whatever you're grown with a soil that's alive, with all those nutrients and natural fertilizers, the flavor is second to none. Because in a fruit, a depleted mineral from your fruit or vegetable is going to take away from flavor. Whereas he would call it full genetic expression, to have every mineral it needs to do what it's supposed to do. And once that happens, then the fruit flavor, like when you bite into one of my apples, the flavor is all there. I mean, it's juicy. The flavor hits you.
What did I do when I was there, Mike? I think I had 5 apples in 45 minutes. I mean, they were I've been telling so many people that I've met around the country just about the incredible quality of those apples.
Yeah, and once you have any fruit or vegetable that's fully genetically expressed, your body is like, "I want that," so you crave it. So that's why the deer hunting industry in food plotting is really one of my bigger customers, because the deer know where the higher proteins are at, and if it tastes good, it's better for you. So they crave it, so they go out of their way to come to your place to eat everything that you got.
Yeah.
So that's what the deer hunters are looking for.
It's really interesting. I was part of a working group last week during Climate Week, and there was an analysis I saw I think over 600 studies that found, biochar is increasing crop yields by an average of at least 15 to 20%. This ranged broadly up to 40%, depending on the soil type, the various biochar properties. And then obviously, Mike, as you and I talked about when I was at the orchard, acidic soils often see the largest benefit. Biochar can increase pH by a half to 1 unit in many of the trials that we've looked at. And then obviously you have other potential for carbon removal. And you nailed it. I mean, not all, this is a really important point. Not all biochar is created equal, right? You've got wood versus manure versus crop residues. When you look at, you talked a little bit about the sweet spot and you talked a little bit about application rates. There are a number of folks on this call, some are farmers, some are looking or thinking about creating a business to make biochar. Others are just very, very interested in the outputs because we have serious issues in terms of water and food quality in this country. We know that it's something that we're looking at extremely closely. It's why biochar is so important. But if you were advising a farmer that's on this call today that wants to get started with biochar, how would you advise them? And what lesson learned the hard way would you share first?
Well, the application rate would be at minimum 1,000 pounds per acre. You could go up to, I've known people that put 2,000 pounds on per acre, and that would be sufficient. If you have a big lot of clay and your soil wasn't really bad, you could put on 2,000 pounds per acre. But the problem with it is if you like digging a hole and you're planting a tree and you put all of it in to one little bitty hole, instead of scattering it around into the root zone, you can get it too hot if you don't mix it in. It's a soil amendment. It's not soil. It's a soil amendment. So that's one thing you got to remember, that you can't just plant right into biochar. It's got to be mixed in to the soil. And I got a guy that's he has 12 acres and a driveway that goes right down the middle of it, and there were 6 acres on each side, and he's had it in alfalfa for years, but this year he decided to take the alfalfa out and plant corn. So one side he planted conventionally what the farm agronomist told him to put on it, the conventional, and on the other side I put biochar and used Mike's Mighty Micros on it, and they're getting ready to harvest it here pretty soon. So it looked like the biochar micro side had a little taller and longer stalks and longer cobs, but we'll see what the harvest turns out to be whenever they do both sides.
Yeah, and Mike, again, you made another really important point that we probably as an industry don't do a good enough job doubling down on. Soil is a natural medium that plants grow in, but it often has limitations. As Mike said, low fertility, poor structure, weak water retention. A soil amendment like biochar is added to enhance those qualities. So it doesn't replace soil, it upgrades it. So it's increasing its ability to hold water. You look at the Corn Belt in the United States where we have a lot of floods. Well, you have a lot of, and the juxtaposition is in the San Joaquin Valley. You have a lot of subsidence. We have a lot of, arid environment, not enough water. The Sierra Nevada is having issues. So if you think about biochar's ability to help with holding water and nutrients and improving microbial nature, it's all about, it's all about resilience. And on that note, Mike, I mean, obviously we've seen just in the last handful of years, I'm sure the requests you are getting from people for feedback and insights around biochar has rocketed up. Clearly, when you and I were talking and I was looking at you fulfilling so many orders for biochar is really encouraging and exciting to see. Where do you see, Mike, both for the orchard and your business, and then in general, from your lens, the biggest opportunities for biochar, let's say in the next 3 years? For me, I think a lot about row crops, specialty crops, livestock systems. We've had a little bit of a downward spiral, in the U.S. If folks haven't, read Perilous Bounty by Tom Philpott, I highly recommend it because of the nature of the corn and soybeans we're growing that feed, cattle and others. But Mike, we want your perspective. What do you see? Where do you see things heading in the next couple of years? Again, both for your business and the biochar industry from an offtake perspective.
Well, everybody's looking for more nutrient dense, better food for you places that offer that, and they're getting tired of the depleted soils that are growing our food on and have no nutrient value at all. So if you listen to William Albrecht, you can look at two, like just say apples, for instance, two identical apples, but the nutrients of one is greater than that of the other, and you'll be able to tell that in the flavor. I mean, once you bite into each one, you bite into one, it's like, well, I could eat it or leave it, and the other one is like, I want another one. It's got everything it needs, and I think today people are more conscious of not only having a, a a plant grown on living soil, but the one that has a lot of nutrient density and good for you.
And Mike, thanks to you, obviously, and being a huge reader and somebody that listens to as much as I can. Albrecht is brilliant, and for those of you that haven't listened to Albrecht or checked out some of his stuff, it's really I can't recommend it enough. One of the things he talks about that was aligned with what I was saying prior is, the costs. Basically, he says the cost of growing healthy livestock and healthy people do not fit readily into our economics. As a society, we've been slow to realize that good health is not a purchasable commodity. And I think, his mindset always is, and you live this and espouse this, Mike, feed the soil and let the soil feed the plants.
Right.
Because it's his succinct philosophy: healthy soil, healthy plants, healthy animals. And you are living that. And I know, Sylvie, if you can, I'd love to pull up a picture of Mike's Mighty Micros, so the folks can see it again and really lean in. I think, Mike, another question that I have, I'll ask two more questions, and then because we were a little delayed to start, I do want to give the audience a chance to address. There are a few questions that have come in here, so I would like to be able to address those directly to you. Mike, in terms of ease of implementation, so, if somebody wants to adopt biochar tomorrow, if you think about cost, education, equipment, market incentives, obviously, the Midwest, we've got some great incentives and things that are happening there that are encouraging more farmers. We still have a long way to go. How would you frame that up? How do you see those things in terms of making it easier for farmers to adopt, biochar solutions?
Well, biochar is you can broadcast it like you would conventional fertilizer right on top of the soil and then work it into the soil. So there you wouldn't really need any special equipment or anything. And the manure biochar, it's got a list 20 miles long of all the nutrients and minerals in it. And talking with the biochar manure people, like Mike McGolden, he says you'll get nutrient value out of that biochar for 3 years if you just plant and take away on it and don't put nothing back. So you'll get a 3-year benefit of not having to fertilize for 3 years. But the way Brian has it, that he came up with the micronutrients is it took him 7 years. It's not just a blend of micronutrients that he just threw together willy-nilly. He studied a book called Marshner's Minerals of Higher Plants. He said it's like a inch thick calculus book of how plants are made and how they work. And he said it took him a year to read that book and to really understand it, and 7 years to come up with what a plant needed to build proteins and accelerate root exudates. And, when you got the biochar in the ground and you have a plant above it putting roots and the root exudates, extruding the sugars into the soil, feeding the microbes, instead of 10-15% of its sugar production feeding microbes, you could get 60-70% of its production feeding the microbes. So you have more food for the microbes, you're going to have more microbes. So, and the more microbes, the more conversion you're going to get for nutrient exchange. And they come up with, they did some studies in timber soil, and dead microbes are called necromass. It's the accumulation of dead microbes, because microbes have such a short life cycle They live and die, and then that becomes soil building, part of your soil building. And they studied the soils in the woodlands, and 50% of the organic matter in woodland soil is necromass, which are dead microbes. So you want more microbes. So Brian was a real stickler on learning from the best in the world. We said, when you learn something, go to the best of the world. So I became friends with Dr. Mary Cole in Australia. And she is an expert in composting and compost teas. And she did a lot of work with Dr. Elaine Ingham here in the States. And they've actually been to each other's places and done things together. But he wanted me to learn from Elaine Ingham or Dr. Cole on the soils, get the meat and potatoes of it. And I ended up working with Dr. Cole because she did one-on-one with me. And then we became pretty good friends, and she invited me to her house. I went to Australia, spent a week with her at her house in her lab, looking at soils, building, making compost teas, and learned about composting. But I think what Brian wanted me to understand was you can make all the compost tea you want and put out as many microbes out in your field as you can, but if they don't have food, they're going to starve. So his philosophy, his deal was he have a fully genetically expressed root plant extruding as much food as possible into the soil, therefore building your microbial activity to its maximum potential and doing that conversion and of nutrients. And then, up in the rhizome area where all these microbes are living right next to the roots or that are getting exudated into the soil, worms love to eat necromass. They love to eat your dead microbes. So they're in there laying trails around all your root systems and right next to your roots to uptake all that free nutrients from the worms. So,
Well, so I would just say a couple things to that, Mike. So first of all, again, in the spirit of growing this industry, the expert in anything was certainly once a beginner. You've now, it's funny, you've now become seen as kind of the expert where people kind of travel out and learn from you. And certainly I was grateful to be able to have that opportunity. And then there's a lot to unpack in what you said. I think I would just highlight one thing. Obviously, we will post all the references that you've highlighted after for the attendees to see. But really the whole point around mineral nutrients, I think, underscores a lot of the point in the framing, and certainly around what Marshner's has highlighted, because these are going to be essential at the end of the day. And it's of fundamental importance for both basic and applied plant sciences when you think about how to leverage mineral applications. But I do think being able to train and work under people that have deep expertise is extremely important. Now, if you'll oblige me, Mike, I'd like to ask a couple questions. We have a handful of questions that came in. I'm just cherry picking the first ones from the top, so we'll roll with those. We'll do kind of a round robin and see how many we can get through, and then Mike, obviously, you'll get the final word. Mike, first question: what's the most common aha moment that farmers have after using Mike's Mighty Microbes for the first time? What do you hear from them once they use the product?
Well, it's microbes, not microbes. So
Microbes,
it's all.
That's it. Yep, that's shame on me for reading the question directly.
Okay, so microbes. Well, let's just say last night my dad, he lives in Tennessee, and he came up this week. He's 90 years old, and he last 2 years at his place in Tennessee, he's been this stuff is good for all plants, not just row crops and trees, but for flowers and whatever. And he's been spraying it on his flowers around their house down there in Tennessee for the last 2 years. And the neighbors are like, "What are you putting on these plants? Because they're so blooming and a lot of blooms and growing really good." And this year, they've had some health issues, so he's not been able to spray because the Mike's Mighty Micros on plant like that, you'll spray it about once every week, 10 days or so. Because it's just a touch of nutrients. I mean, it's parts per million and parts per billion. I mean, it's just like a vitamin for you. You know, you're just going to take a little bit every day. Well, this is just a little bit every week or two. And he hadn't been able to do it this year. And he goes, all of his plants that were blooming and all the big flowers, they're gone. He said they're just not producing like they should and showing like they should. And he goes, when I go back, I'm gonna start doing it again next year. He's like, it just makes that big of a difference.
Clearly, and again, seeing is believing. And I was very fortunate. I got to see it live. And God bless your father. That's incredible. And I'm assuming I'll attribute some of it to the great food supply that he's had access to. Our friend Jan asked, Mike, what, if any, difference has there been in water usage? Can you talk a little bit about that? Obviously, we've seen some incredible statistics from farmers that are using biochar and reducing water inputs. Talk to us about your firsthand experience with that, please.
Okay, so right now we're in a drought here in the central Illinois. We're 12 inches behind on rain. So I've had 3/4 of an inch of rain since July the 10th. So it's been like the ground is like concrete. But under my trees where I've got planted with biochar, and Brian would say, try to mimic nature as much as possible. So in nature, the ground is covered. So I don't use weed killer underneath my trees. I use mulch. So I mulch everything under the trees. You know what likes living under mulch are worms and microbes, and so I want to attract everything there. So I've not watered this year. My new trees I planted this spring, they're still green and looking pretty good, but they could be better if I had rain. But they're not in the state that when I very first started this venture without the biochar and the micronutrients. They don't look like that at all. Because when you start putting the micronutrients on the leaves, you bypass, what's in the soil. It goes directly into the leaf. So my trees all look pretty good. But yeah, I could use some rain, but I think that if I didn't have the biochar in the ground and the micronutrients on the foliar feed, I think they would be I think they'd probably be in an early, dropping the leaves early and going into early fall color. As a matter of fact, my apple trees will stay green. They're the last to go in the winter, to go in dormancy. They'll stay green up until into November. And all the other trees that I don't care for, in the yard and stuff, they'll drop their leaves, whereas the apple trees growing under this way will just want to stay all the way into winter till they finally drop.
Well, you're making certainly by those statements making an honest man of me, because that's kind of been a similar thematic that I've observed and said. But again, hearing it directly is important. Mike, we have a bi-directional question from our friend Erica. So there's two parts to this that I'm seeing. So first part is, what are your thoughts on applying biochar on its own versus biochar plus compost, essentially activated biochar? So again, when you hear the term activated biochar, it's biochar further processed to dramatically increase surface area, porosity, absorption capacity, etc. So maybe start there, and then Arturo adds into Erica's question: is there a difference between activating biochar with dry compost versus compost tea? That's a very interesting twist as well. So Mike, maybe if you want to take a bite out of that question. I don't know if it's going to be as juicy as your apples, but I'm interested to hear your response.
Well, what I've learned from compost teas is the microbes in the teas have to have food. So if you put them out in your field without the food, they're just going to die. So the best way to the best way to build soil and to use biochar is with a plant root in place. So you're not going to get a more efficient, better plant food for your microbes than an actual plant root exudate. So you want to maximize your plant's ability to produce root exudates, and then the microbes will come automatically. You don't have to make a tea. You don't have to do all, buy microbes or do any of that stuff. They're there. That they need food, and we give them the food, and they're going to be there. So it's really simple. You just maximize the root exudates and have the root in the ground. There was a guy here doing a video for a YouTube thing, and I gave him some Mike's Mighty Micros to take home and to try. And he had a raised garden bed planter box, and he planted 2 tomato plants. One tomato plant, he used Mike's Mighty Micros on it, and the other one he didn't use anything on it. It's just whatever water it got, and the only difference was the micros. Well, that one that he used the micros on, the plant grew. He built a 6-foot trellis for it, and it grew to the top of it. And the other one was about 2 foot tall, and the one that the micros were on every week, it was about 6 foot tall and full of tomatoes. And when he got done at the end of the season, he pulled the roots out, and he said there was just as many roots in the soil as there was vegetation on top.
Wow.
So when you maximize your roots, and just think of all that root exudating and all the microbes that it was feeding in the soil with the root system that was 5 times bigger than the other plant there next to it. And the biochar, like in my root box, it gives a place for the microbes to live. So they have enemies too, so they can hide and have a place to live. And it's not just for water holding; it's for the microbes to live and hide and do their thing in. And when the root exudates put the sugar into the soil, it acts like a sponge to hold it there. So now it's holding the sugars into the root zone up there, where the microbes are going to hang out around your root zone, and have the biochar to live in. And then that pulls in your worms, and then the cycle. It's really when you start thinking about it, it's really simple. You just kind of follow what nature does and try to mimic that, and then it's kind of once you have that flavor of that fruit, it's second to none.
Yeah, it's the simplicity element of it. I think sometimes we overcomplicate things, and that complication or that perceived complication takes people aback and not want to move forward. But part of the reason for having this talk is to really highlight that anybody, you can do it. It's doable. And actually, Mike, this is I want to ask one. I'm going to pick one last question out of this, and the rest we'll as we always do, we'll address offline. I really like this question, and I could tell, Mike, how important family is to you. When I was out there, obviously, again, as I've traveled the country, it's a hot question of generations. This is I believe it's a 4th generation orchard. I may or may be off. I was looking at my notes from when we spent time together, but regardless, like, family makes these things work. We need generations to stay involved. And then in parallel, obviously, this is a business, right? You are driving a level of agritourism between picnics. You've got a really cool playground. You're doing a lot with business and your community. Talk to us a little bit about the importance of the generations being engaged in this business and what it means. You mentioned your dad, and obviously your kids and your grandkids. And then obviously from a business perspective, everything you're doing around sustainability and circular economy, the impact around, agritourism, because at the end of the day, obviously businesses need to stay afloat. You need to continue to attract and drive value in those communities. So I think that's a really fitting way to end on. And then any other things you want to flag related to how people can stay in touch with you, the orchard, get their hands on some of the product, etc. So Mike, over to you to answer that question, and then give us the closing word.
Well, like I said, my father-in-law started it in 1980. and then he retired from Caterpillar at 49 years old, and then started making donuts here and put the cidery in, and for 15, 20 years or whatever, he ran this orchard. And he's like, well, we're going to close it unless you take it over. So me and the wife talked it over, and I worked 25 years in pet food manufacturing, and they allowed me to retire at 50. So I retired at 50 from there. And then that's when we started doing our things here. Last year, 7 months ago, I got a set of twins, grandkids, and I got 3 sons. And my daughter-in-law was adamant on working at the bank where she was employed, and now she's working here full time and bringing the kids with her here. So everybody kind of takes it. And when we were trying to set this phone up, you heard a kid in the background. Well, that was one of those grandkids that we get a run around here with. And they like to test apples and eat apples, and I got a 2-year-old that she rides on the golf cart with me, and we have to get her an apple while she's eating and driving. And like I said, I got three adult sons, and each one of them is a small owner of Mike's Mighty Micros. So each one of them has their department of what they take care of. So they get a little piece of the pie. That was another one of Brian's things was get your family involved and give them a little piece of the pie. So he's like, let them do all the grunt work. Then I just do all the PR stuff and not really have to do any of the labor stuff, but I end up doing a lot of the labor stuff anyway. But, mikesmightymicros.com is, there's a video on there, a link to a video that tells the story behind it and about Brian, and a place to order and a lot of ideas and how it works. And it's really taken off in the Amish community. Is it really, if you use it like prescribed and how to use it, it works really good. And it's really took fire this year, and the sales have been really good.
Well, Mike, it's been a privilege, and I'll say there were a couple questions that came in on farm cooperatives scaling biochar, and I'll just say, fast that they're absolutely well positioned, to pool resources and aggregate residues and invest collectively. There's a lot of incentives between USDA, DOE, carbon markets, the push to soil health. We'll go deeper in that, but I think, Mike, at the heart of every family tradition is a meaningful meal, and it's even better when it's a meaningful meal that is leveraging incredible inputs that are great for gut health, the gut microbiome. All of this links back to how we feel, how we live our lives, and I'm just so grateful to you for taking the time out of your crazy hectic schedule to tell your story to our audience. And obviously, this recording will be made available. We will share it. We'll disseminate it. We'll do our best to answer any of the outstanding questions. And obviously, please, follow us on Grain Ecosystem on LinkedIn, or check out our YouTube channel. And I promise you, this will not be the last time we have Mike Mitchell live with us. So signing out today, Mike, thank you again, and wishing you all the best as we round out the rest of this year.
Thanks for having me.